Leeds United are one of many clubs in the football pyramid who get a little bit obsessed over transfers, and at the time it's easy to get swept up, but it's also really good to look back on deals that we've done recently and sort of rate them. How have they done? Have they had the impact that we expected at Leeds United? So I'm going to do a Leeds United signings tier list. Just to let you know, I'm going to be judging the players on their performances so far, and I want you to let me know what you think in the comments down below. Also, whilst you're down there, like and subscribe. You might as well. It's easy enough. So, diving into it, we've got to start with one of the first players that arrived, and not the first that arrived, but one of the first that left, Jed Spence. So, Jed Spence signed on loan from Spurs, and he didn't do very much. He was injured for a significant chunk of his time at Leeds United, and then he went back to Spurs, and we weren't entirely sure why. Initially, in the first few hours, everyone thought that, okay, maybe Spurs have recalled him because he's not getting enough time, but at the same time, he's injured, so that doesn't really make any sense. And everything started to add up when we learned that it was Leeds United that requested that he go back, because things started to click. And reportedly, from behind the scenes, he sounds like he was a little bit of a prick, but we've heard that Jed Spence didn't have much of a work rate. He wasn't training. In the meeting where he was told he was going to go back to Spurs, he was late, for an idea of his commitment to being timely. So I feel like Jed Spence is the definition of D tier, the worst possible signing. And although it wasn't our fault, we weren't to know that he would be such a bad signing, it's not a really good one to get started on, and is very quickly followed by Carl Darlow, who reportedly cost us something like £300,000 from Newcastle. Not too bad for a fee. However, he's been incredibly bit part. He is injured at times, had, I think, a thumb dislocation or something in the match where he had to come on against Preston and then missed a few games after that. And it's not great, to be honest with you. I imagine he came in thinking that he would be immediately seizing that starting spot from Illan Meslier, who had been dropped by Sam Allardyce, but it's clear that they were meant to compete from the very start. And in that competition, Illan Meslier has looked significantly more comfortable than Carl Darlow. Plus, I'll be honest, with the way we play the ball out from the back, Carl Darlow scares me a little bit when he plays. People might complain about Mellier's distribution, but 90% of the time, it's on target. It's short stuff. It's fine. Darlow's short balls are fired with a speed that would kill a small child sometimes. And that just doesn't really work when you're playing out from the back, because it tells me that he's not confident in doing it. And whilst he isn't necessarily a bad signing, because we did need a backup goalkeeper, especially when Meslier had that little moment of madness, I don't think he's been a fantastic signing. So I'm going to pop him in C tier. I feel like that's fair because what he's done hasn't been too impressive, and we sort of need to see a little bit more of him in order to sort of bump him up that ranking a little bit, because he scares me a bit and I don't really see him being a long-term option for the club. However, someone that could be is Ethan Ampadu. We signed him early on in the season for £7 million from Chelsea, and since then he has been our best midfielder when he has played in midfield, and he's been absolutely incredible at centre-back, pairing with anyone he needs to, whether it's in midfield with Gray or Kamara, or if it's in defence with Rodon. He'd do a job with Strouk and Cooper, I imagine. The way that he reads a game is incredible. He does what he needs to do, if anything, a moment before he needs to do it, because he can just tell what the other team is going to do. I can see why Chelsea haven't wanted to keep him, because they're about to deal with significant FFP trouble. But in my opinion, this is an absolute bargain, the bargain of the season, because he's someone that is a key part of us going up this year. And although Chelsea needed to sell, I don't think they needed to sell that low. I think we've got a fantastic deal out of them, and he's going to be a key part of the club for a long time. Also club captain several times. In my opinion, I'm going to put him in A tier. Or am I? Am I going to put him in S? We'll work it out. I might change my mind as we go. On the note of incredible centre-backs, we have also signed Joe Rodon. He's coming on loan from Spurs with the potential for a permanent signing in the summer. That's not because there's a clause in his deal or anything like that. That's just because Spurs probably want rid of him. And the best thing about Joe Rodon is he looks so assured at the back. And it's not just his ability to take time and be confident in his passes and playing the ball. It's the way that he 100% commits himself to everything. Yes, he's got a red card this season, but that was for 2 challenges, neither of which were yellows. Because he's so well measured as well. He's someone that knows that when he makes a challenge, he's going to make that challenge stick. He knows he's going to win the ball. He's not going to overcommit to anything and make a daft tackle and get himself sent off and leave us at a disadvantage. Although that did happen earlier in the season, that wasn't his fault, in my opinion, and he is the perfect pairing with Ampadu. I don't know whether that's the Wales thing kicking in, but it seems to be working, so we might as well keep up with it. For me, I think Joe Rodon is the same sort of tier of signing as Ethan Ampadu. I'm going to go A tier just because they pair so nicely together. And someone that no one thought would do particularly well this season. When we signed him, everyone thought, is this a joke? Because he was training with the team despite not having a club, is Sam Byon. We signed him on a free in the summer. And as I mentioned, everyone was a bit shocked that he joined the club because, sure, he was at Leeds in the past and he'd worked with Daniel Farke before, but he's never fit. But he only signed for 1 year, which made everyone think, okay, is he just going to be a rotation option? But he started the season playing almost every single game. Whilst he has had the occasional injury issues, when he's played, he's been absolutely excellent, especially out of position. You've got to consider he's a right back, and almost every single time we've seen him this year, he's been out on the left. Admittedly, this means that he hasn't been at his full potential ability because he's not on his favoured foot, and he has to play a little bit more inside than Firpo does because he's right-footed. But I think he's been a fantastic signing, and as value for money goes, can't really complain with a free signing on a 1 year deal and presumably not that much in terms of wages. I think I'd put him on B tier. That's a nice sort of comfy level for him to go in, I feel. On the subject of fullbacks that we've signed that might stay here for an extended period of time, Connor Roberts. Again, we've not got a buy clause in his deal, but he has immediately said that he'd like to come here permanently, which was fantastic, especially him saying that on the night that we signed him. Signed from Burnley on loan without any buy clause, but that could be easily worked out if we sort it. And he adds an extra little bit of attacking flavour on the right-hand side. Archie Gray is a brilliant right-back, but he tends to like to underlap a little bit, to go inside the winger on that flank, which isn't good when you've got a winger on that flank that likes to cut in themselves, often Willie Nonto. So when you have Connor Roberts out there, you've got someone bringing that width, and it definitely works. And I feel like we haven't seen enough of him, but what we have seen, I very much like. He brings some solid attacking stuff. He likes to get stuck into a challenge, not necessarily one that he'll win, but he's a very good player. And I think I'm going to put him in B tier alongside Sam Byon, purely because we've not seen enough of him. But someone we've seen plenty of this season, Ilya Grov. Now, there's a few things that we need to consider when we're talking about Grov. We signed him for £5 million from Werder Bremen. We said that Ethan Ampadu was a great deal, fantastic bargain, £7 million, wonderful. And it's easy to forget, Ilya Grov is 23 years old. He moves, he thinks, he plays like someone with so much more age and experience behind them. But at the end of the day, he's still 23. He's got a lot of potential to grow. And that makes me think that he could be the best value transfer here, because £5 million for a player that is just dominating championship midfields is incredible. He's insanely mobile. He's got a level of work rate that is absolutely through the roof. And I think since he came into the squad in like a more permanent way, since he started playing week on week on week on week, and he got a little bit more match form in him, I'm going to do something that might be a little bit controversial here. I think Grov might be our best signing. I'm going to put him in S tier. I think he belongs there. I really like Grov, but I'm going to stick with it. It'll work. Next up, we have his midfield partner in Glenn Kamara. It's weird to think that like 3 of our 4 midfielders weren't playing for us last season. 4 of 4 midfielders weren't playing for us last season because Gray also wasn't really playing in the first team. Glenn Kamara signed from Rangers for just £4 million, which again, wonderful little bargain that we got ourselves there, even though it took forever to get that deal across the line. And he's been a near constant in this Leeds United side, and for good reason. He's very consistent, he's reliable without being too flashy. When he gets the ball, you know he's going to find a smart little pass either to break through the lines or to retain possession. 90% of the time that Glenn Kamara receives the ball, we don't lose possession. I think this was the possession retention statistic that Sky flashed up the other day. I was really surprised by that because occasionally he's got a loose pass here or there, but the amount of times he receives the ball, of course, he's going to have the occasional mistake in him. I think he was a brilliant signing, has been a big part of this squad's rhythm being, as it is, nice and constant and well managed. And I think I'm going to put him on the same tier as Rodon and Ampadu. He plays a fantastically big role in this side. It's just we notice him less because he's someone that the play goes through. It doesn't start with him, it doesn't end with him, but he does what he needs to do. He's the perfect cog in that machine. Someone that struggled to get into the machine, however, is Jaden Anthony. We signed him from Bournemouth on loan in a swap for Sinistera. And whilst in personality terms, I think we levelled up, I think he's been incredibly hard to judge in terms of on pitch. When we've seen him on the pitch, he's been okay. But it's incredibly hard to judge because we've not seen him on pitch that much. He's got fewer minutes than Jamie Shackleton. He's got something like 400 minutes and 20 appearances. And that's not his fault. Any other season, he would have been a perfect signing because he would have gotten into the side, played himself into form, and been brilliant. But right now, he's been behind Crescencio Somerville, who's been one of the best wingers in the Championship on his day. He's been behind Dan James, who has had a huge impact, and he's been behind Willie Nonto, who has returned to form spectacularly. Whilst I think Jaden Anthony is a very good player and will continue to be a very good player, lower end Premier League, upper end Championship, I think this season's been really harsh for him. Emotionally, it's going to be tough as well because his mum passed away. But in terms of on the pitch, I don't think he's had the chances to prove himself, and that means that I feel it's only fair to put him on the same level as Carl Darlow. Whilst having Anthony on the pitch doesn't scare me in the same way that Darlow does, Anthony hasn't spent enough time present and playing and having an impact. So compared to the rest of the signings, it's hard to put him on the same level as a Sam Byram, who was a big part of us getting into form in the first place, or Connor Roberts, who was significant in beating Leicester. Final signing, and one that could be quite hard to work out the level for, is Joel Peru. We signed him from Swansea at the start of the season for £10 million, which is the most expensive signing of the summer. And to be fair, he's done exactly what we signed him for. He's scored 11 goals so far this season. He's gotten 2 assists. When he's played, he's put the ball in the back of the net, and that's all you can ask for him. But he has been somewhat overshadowed by the return of Patrick Bamford. Patrick Bamford came back into the side in the new year, I think. His first league game was, I think, against... I can't remember. New Year's Day, off the top of my head. But he returned and he's been scoring ever since. He changed the way we played. He's been playmaking really well. And whilst Peru did a few of those things, Peru's presence also led to confusion at the top with Jorginho Rutter, which wasn't good. It led to everything being a little bit more confused and things fell apart a little bit more easily. And I think that because of that, I might put him in B tier, purely because I think, although it's hard to say, I think B tier is the right spot for someone that is a good player and has played really well when he's in the side, but isn't in the side because he's not been able to force his way in. Had Peru been able to force his way into the side more often, had been able to sort of outfight Bamford for that position, I'd go A or even S tier, but that's not been the case recently, and that is a little bit of an issue for him. But ultimately, I want to know what you think. Let me know if you think any of my tier listings are completely wild and out of pocket. Let me know where you would put people in the comments down below. Like, subscribe. I hope you enjoyed. Could even become a channel member. That'd be quite nice. And I will see you later. Quite like tier lists, although it feels like the perfect way to get myself cancelled by the fan base. Might do just a Patrick Bamford and Firpo tier list that ends up with them both in S tier. That'd be perfect. Anyway, see you later.